Hello human beings, Power Gamer here, and you know, I've never really been the best at socializing. I mean, why would I? I'm someone who owns Chicken Range on Nintendo Switch, so I bought some topic cards that might help me out in my next social event. Let's see, the weather, recent movies, politics, Super Mario Bros. 2, oh that sounds good.
Super Mario Bros. 2, the only game I can think of that completely switched franchises. I talked about this before in my Mario The Lost Levels review, so I'll keep it quick. After the release of the original Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, Nintendo of America believed the game was too difficult to release it anywhere else. So the president of NOA, Minoru Arakawa, asked the company to take a Famicom game called Doki Doki Panic and reskin it to feature Mario characters. This version of Mario 2 was released on October 9th, 1988 for the NES, which was ironically the same month that Super Mario Bros. 3 was released in Japan. It was the top-selling game in North America for 14 months and ended up becoming the fourth best-selling game on the NES. Reception was positive upon release, but nowadays this game tends to be overlooked compared to the more popular first and third entries.
But why is that? Is it because it was as unremarkable as Lost Levels, or is it just because it wasn't originally a Mario game? Well, I'm gonna find out today. Now while I have played this game before, I didn't make it past the first world, so I'm finally gonna see what makes this such a strange entry in a monumental series.
The story sees Mario have a dream where he goes through a mysterious door and a voice tells him the land of Subcon has been taken over by an evil frog named Wart. Mario tells his friends about this and learns that they all had the same dream as well. They find a strange cave and wind up in Subcon, so they decide they need to defeat Wart and save the land. The story's still pretty simple, but it's a bit more in-depth than the previous game. Now this is a pretty good-looking NES game. The sprites are significantly more detailed than the previous game was, and this was the first game where Mario wore blue overalls instead of brown. Unfortunately though, this can lead to some slowdown, and my god does it get bad in areas where there's a lot of stuff on screen. The music is pretty good, but it's not as memorable as the first game's soundtrack, and there's even fewer songs than before. There's the overworld theme, the underground theme, and the boss theme. That's it. Now the gameplay is actually pretty different compared to the first game, which makes sense given its origin. You still run and jump to reach the end of the stage, but you can't kill enemies by simply jumping on them. Instead, you have to pick them up and throw them, or grab something else and hit them with it. Some enemies die as soon as you throw them, but others have to be thrown into a pit or another enemy. This game is all about grabbing things, most of which are found in the ground. The most common things you'll pick up are vegetables, onions, turnips, pumpkins, all kinds of stuff. You can also find bombs, which blow up rocks, shells, which you can throw at enemies, kinda like the Koopa shells, and potions, which create a door to a shadow world wherever it lands.
Yeah, this game is pretty weird.
There's also POW blocks, which kill everything on screen, and watches, which freeze enemies.
If you're standing still, you'll just drop whatever you're holding right in front of you, but if you're running, you'll throw it farther away. You can also do a super jump by holding down for a few seconds. You only have 2 hit points like in the previous game, but you have them by default instead of having to grab a mushroom. You still shrink when you only have 1 hit left, but you can't enter smaller crevices like before, so it's more of a warning that you're close to dying. And I gotta say, you look pretty ridiculous since your head stays the same size. You can find mushrooms inside the potion doors to increase your health, but they're only in specific spots, so you need to know where to place the potions. Because not only does the screen not scroll when you're in these things, but you get kicked out after about 5 seconds. The Fire Flower isn't in this game at all, and the only power-up that acts exactly the same is the Superstar, only instead of finding it in a block, it comes up from the bottom of the screen after you collect 5 of these cherries. The only way you can restore a hit point is either by grabbing a mushroom or by finding one of these hearts, which only spawn after killing enough enemies quickly. And your health resets to 2 every time you beat a level. The biggest addition to this game, though, is being able to play as 4 characters: Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach. You select which character to play as at the beginning of every level, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. Mario is your standard character with nothing very unique. Luigi can jump higher but is kinda slippery like Lost Levels. Toad can run and pick things up fastest but can't jump very high, and Peach is slow but she can float in the air for a few seconds. I ended up using Mario and Peach for most of the game. Toad was only really useful in the levels where you have to dig, and I don't like Luigi at all because of how hard he is to control. Peach is easily the best for platforming, but she's not that great against bosses because of how long it takes her to pick things up. The levels are still split into worlds, but there's only 7 instead of 8, and they all have 3 levels instead of 4. Instead of touching a flagpole, the levels end when you pick up an orb and go inside this bird head's mouth. The levels are much more complicated than previously, since many of them have you move all over the place instead of just going right.
Hell, you can actually go backwards in this game.
Some have you climb up vines, go indoors, and go down vases, which act the same as pipes. The game still has lives, unfortunately, and while you do have continues, there's only 2, and once you lose them, it's back to the start of the game.
This is the one thing Lost Levels did better. Having to start the whole game all over again is not fun. fun.
You can find some 1-up mushrooms, but they're even more uncommon than they were before, and there are no coins in this game either. Sort of. When you enter a potion door, anything buried in the ground can be picked up as a coin. Once you beat the level, you can use them in the slot machine to earn some extra lives. But since it's a slot machine, it's completely luck-based on whether or not you get any. I thought lives were scarce in the first game, but it is nothing compared to this. Since this wasn't originally a Mario game, none of the enemies make a return. Instead, we have brand new ones like Shy Guys, which just walk back and forth. Red ones fall off edges, while pink ones don't, kinda like the red and green Koopa Troopas. There's also Sniffets, which are like Shy Guys, only they shoot bullets. These jumping snakes, called Cobrats. Ninjas, which are these little ninja guys. Sparks, which are these moving balls of electricity. Pokies, which are these large cacti. Pidgeots that ride on a magic carpet you can hijack. Bombs, which are walking bombs. Flurries, these little snowman guys. Albatos, these bird things. And Ostros, which are ostriches ridden by Shy Guys. I think it's kind of interesting how some of these enemies like Bombs, Shy Guys, and Pokies ended up becoming Mario's staples, while others never appeared again. But there's two enemies I haven't mentioned yet, the first being Birdo. She's a recurring mini-boss you fight at the end of most of the stages. She spits eggs at you, and you have to jump on them, pick them up, and then throw them back at her. Do this 3 times, and she dead. The pink ones only shoot eggs, the red ones occasionally shoot fireballs that you can't grab, and the green and gray ones only shoot fireballs, so you have to grab something else. It's neat, but fighting Birdo over and over again gets kinda old. And the other big enemy is the Phantos. Every once in a while, you'll come across a locked door, and you need to go somewhere else to find the key. Once you grab the key, one of these mask things will come to life and start flying after you. It'll continuously chase you throughout the stage, but if you throw the key, it'll go away until you pick it up again. So you want to keep throwing the key and only pick it up when you need to. This is the first Mario game where the level's theme is affected by what world it's in. Worlds 1 and 3 are grassy, World 2 and 6 are desert, World 4 is icy, World 5 is dark, and World 7 is sky. It doesn't affect the level design that much, but it is nice to have more variety in how they look. The only ones really affected are World 4, which has ice physics, World 7 is mostly a bottomless pit, and Worlds 2 and 6 have quicksand that you can sink in, and sections where you have to dig through a bunch of sand while avoiding Shy Guys. Again, these are the only levels where Toad comes in handy.
Now the game does actually have some pretty neat level designs.
You'll have levels where you have to ride on a Shy Guy across a spike pit, jump on logs and enemies across a waterfall, and even ride on a Birdo egg to cross a gap. Little things help this game feel more unique when playing it today compared to the first Mario game. But this game does have its fair share of garbage. If a bomb explodes off-screen, it doesn't count. Enemies respawn if you just slightly off-screen where they were. If you're climbing a ladder and change screens, you can't stop until after a couple of seconds, which can lead to getting randomly hit. And probably the most annoying thing is that the Birdo eggs bounce off walls and they still hit you if you're below them. It can even go through the floor so you can get hit by running underneath. That's just plain stupid. At the end of every world, you have to fight a boss, and they're thankfully more unique than just fighting Bowser over and over again. World 1, you fight this mouse guy called Mouser. You have to grab his bombs and throw them back at him before they explode, so they damage him instead of you. It can be really tricky, since you have to make sure they land in the right spot. World 2 is this 3-headed snake called Triclyde. It spits fire at you, and you have to grab these platform things and throw them at him. Yet, spoiler alert, all of the bosses involve throwing things. World 3 is a rematch with Mouser, and he takes even more hits to kill. World 4 is a fireball named Fry Guy. I love that name. Hit him with platforms a few times, and he turns into a bunch of small flames which go down in 1 hit each. World 5 is Claw Grip, a giant crab that throws rocks at you. Jump on the rocks and throw them back at him. World 6 is a rematch with Triclyde. Now it's time to head to the final world. World 7 is only 2 levels instead of 3, but these levels are pretty rough. They're not as bad as World 8 in the last 2 games, but they can still get pretty annoying. 7-1 has you hop on a bunch of clouds, ride multiple birds, and this really annoying part where you have to walk to lower platforms in between Shy Guys. And this part is nearly impossible to get through without taking a hit. The slowdown certainly doesn't help. Then you gotta climb ladders with all these sparks running around, and it's pretty aggravating. Then we reach 7-2, and you go inside this castle. This place is enormous, and has a ton of branching pathways and enemies you have to avoid. You've got sparks, snippets, not 1, but 2 Birdos, moving conveyor belts everywhere, a locked door, and it all culminates in a fight where the bird head at the end of the stage comes to life and starts attacking you. And it's honestly really easy. Well, only 1 fight left. War. You have to grab these vegetables and throw them at him when his mouth is open while avoiding the bubbles he shoots at you. I guess that's one way to get your kids to eat their veggies. It's really simple and not too hard, but it is pretty fun. It's certainly better than the fights in the original, that's for sure. Once you hit him 6 times, he turns to stone and this door appears. You go inside and open this cork, releasing these little guys from captivity. Mario and friends are hailed as heroes and Wart is carried away. And then it's revealed that it was all a dream. Ah yes, the most cliché plot twist ever. I'll take it over some poorly translated text. And that, my friends, is the end of the game.
Game conquered. 2 is definitely weird, but it's still a pretty fun game. While it is better than the original in some ways, I think I still prefer the first one overall. It just has a lot more historical value to it, and the gameplay is a bit more enjoyable. I wouldn't say this is a must-play, but if you're curious, I think it's worth a shot.
There's been a ton of re-releases, it's in the Mario All-Stars collection, and it was ported to the Game Boy Advance.
And since I've been talking about it for the past 10 minutes, it'll make a great conversation piece at my next social event.
One event later.
Yeah, probably wasn't the best topic for an AA meeting.